Vatican bells tolled once, twice, a third, and somewhere inside the ancient walls of St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Francis exhaled his last breath. A lifetime of devotion ended in a silence so complete it seemed to swallow the world. And lined before the basilica steps, the Swiss Guard. Their halberds gleamed in the cold light, their boots rooted in stone, their faces carved in centuries of discipline. Not one guard moved until he did. One soldier, one soul stepped forward, one step, then another. Gasps shattered the stillness. Cameras froze in mid-click. The marble seemed to tremble underfoot. A Swiss Guard was breaking formation at the Pope's funeral, and hidden beneath his breastplate, something far heavier than armor pulsed against his chest. A letter, a promise, a command whispered not by authority, but by love. Before we reveal how a forbidden step shattered centuries of tradition, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from today. And if you believe true loyalty sometimes demands courage beyond orders, stay with us. This is a story you will never forget. The first light of a reluctant dawn painted St. Peter's Square in muted tones of gold and gray. 1,000 black-clad mourners shifted in respectful silence. The Swiss Guards stood motionless, their brilliant uniforms, blue, red, and yellow, punctuating the sea of mourning. Among them, Lance Corporal Lucas Bowman. 14 years of faultless service, a monument to discipline. Today, more than ever, stillness was demanded. Because today, history was watching. Beneath his flawless uniform, tucked over his heart, something stirred. A simple envelope, a final letter. Lucas could feel its presence against his chest like a second heartbeat. No one else knew, no one could know, but it weighed heavier than any armor he wore. Long ago, in a quiet workshop in Lucerne, a boy had watched his father build delicate watches. "Everything matters," his father had said, one magnified eye squinting through a glass. "The space between seconds is where craftsmanship lives." Lucas learned more than timekeeping that day. He learned the art of precision, the danger of hesitation, and the beauty of when to move and when to remain perfectly still. Years later, standing rigid in the Apostolic Palace, Lucas had once faced another teacher, Pope Francis. "You know what's dangerous, son?" the Pope had asked, a gentle smile crinkling his weathered face. "To believe discipline and compassion are enemies." Francis had spoken of a childhood mistake, choosing protocol over love, and how it haunted him still. "When the moment comes," the Pope had whispered, "move." In the guard chambers before the funeral, Commandant Schmid's voice sliced through the tension. "Today, the world watches," he warned. "If even one guard moves, it dishonors not just the man, but the faith itself." His gaze locked onto Lucas. Lucas stood motionless, breath measured, expression unreadable. But inside him, the old conversations stirred. Not just the institution, the man. The slow march of history emerged from the basilica. Priests in white, cardinals in crimson, and finally, the simple cypress coffin, plain by papal standards, bearing the cross. The morning sun kissed the polished wood. The world seemed to shrink into a single breathless moment. Beneath layers of armor and expectation, Lucas remembered the secret meeting 2 nights ago. Father Ventresca's whispered words, the trembling envelope handed to him. For the man who once stood guard in tears. A simple instruction, delivered by a dying pope. A promise only Lucas could keep. He moved, one step, another. The ancient stones of the square amplified the sharp click of his boots. Tourists parted instinctively, unsure why, but certain of the gravity. The sea of mourners rippled, cameras pivoted, voices caught in throats, a figure in scarlet, blue, and gold breaking centuries of stillness. Captain Schmid's jaw dropped in horror, but Lucas didn't see him. He saw only the coffin and the promise. Standing before the coffin, Lucas shifted his halberd to his left hand. With military precision, he reached into his uniform. The letter, pale and fragile, appeared against the bold swirl of colors. Gently, reverently, he bent a knee, placed the letter atop the coffin. "For your final journey," he whispered. The words carried softly on the wind. He rose, 3 steps back, rifle snapped back to vertical, face like stone. Duty, fulfilled. No alarms blared, no guards tackled him. The mass continued, absorbing the impossible moment into its sacred flow. But something had changed. Those closest could see it, the paper resting on the coffin, untouched, honored. The dead man's final message received not by priests or cardinals, but by a single guard who dared. Hours later, Lucas faced a quiet tribunal. A cardinal, the commandant, a senior secretary. "You broke centuries of discipline," Schmid said, voice razor-sharp. Lucas simply nodded. "I fulfilled a dying man's last request." A beat of silence. Lady Evelyn Banks unfolded another letter, the Pope's letter to Lucas. His Holiness had planned for this. The discipline of the guard stood. But so did compassion. No dismissal, no disgrace. Instead, a reassignment. Lucas Bowman, once a gleaming figure of public ceremony, was quietly moved to the apostolic archives, away from crowds, away from cameras, preserving history now, not simply standing guard over it. A place where loyalty wasn't about appearance, but about meaning. Weeks later, crossing the Vatican gardens, Lucas passed a school group. A boy broke from the line, running up to him, wide-eyed. "You're the guard who moved," the boy said breathlessly. Lucas smiled, rare and small. "Weren't you scared?" the boy asked. "No," Lucas replied softly. "Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is move when the world tells you to stand still." In the cool vaults of the archives, Lucas found an ancient letter from Augustine to Jerome. "I would rather be corrected than praised incorrectly," Augustine had written. Even saints knew, sometimes rules serve truth. Sometimes truth must move first. One evening, alone, Lucas paused in a marble corridor. He pressed a gloved hand over his heart, where the Pope's letter had once rested, and he smiled. He had not broken tradition, he had fulfilled it. Sometimes the deepest faith requires the first step forward. Fade to black.